So, what makes a master teacher a master teacher? If you know what I'm talking about, there are people that have come to Earth that have been what we consider master teachers. They are people that might be Jesus or some spiritual person that has come on the earth that has all this information that they share, and it's kind of beyond the human logic or what we might fully comprehend in our own understanding. And as someone that has been labeled a master teacher often, I have often wondered what brings through this energy of being a master teacher. So I'm going to describe to you what my spirit team shared with me the other night about the difference between someone that came to Earth to be a master teacher or to be like a volunteer to teach from a higher perspective or dimension versus maybe uh someone else. Now, there's no hierarchy here. There's no better or worse or smarter or not smarter. All this information is accessible to all of us. It's just that some dedicated their frequency and energy to coming to help remind you of what is already within you, which is what Jesus did. He came to teach the kingdom of heaven is within. You don't have to look outside of yourself to receive the power that you already have. You don't have to look for someone else to give you permission to access your power, even. You don't even have to give yourself over to this religious structure to receive this power or even have the ability to connect with God. There's all these rules and regulations that came alongside when religion was being developed that took the power away from the people. And Jesus, as a master teacher, came to give the power back to the people. And this is what master teachers or spiritual teachers have been attempting to do ever since, just pulling through the same teachings and message that Yahweh himself brought through and reciprocating those. Spirit has let me know multiple times that the answers are always going to be the same. Spirit doesn't have any other answer except for love and to go within and to remember your own internal power and to remember that this human experience is a temporary one and that you're here to have an experience, not to live in suffering, not to hate the experience, but to allow it to be something that you use as a way to expand knowledge of yourself. So, as a soul, you do not have the capacity to feel the way that you feel as a human. There's no physical body, there's no emotions outside of love and blissfulness. And there's sure the heck not any experience where there's a physical density of attempting to be in some type of a physical relationship that seems and feels separate from yourself. When you're in a higher frequency dimension, everything's one energy. So when you come to earth, you experience yourself as separate from other people, separate from your higher self, separate from your spirit team, separate from the experience of the universe. You come into what we call the um, I am energy, into the energy of I. When you leave the human experience, you move back into a we frequency. And so it is here on earth that we access the I am energy because we bring that back to self of an I am. And that's how we relate to source energy God or to our higher frequency self is by bringing it through the I. But when you move into a higher frequency, you don't have the I, you move into the we consciousness. So this is important to understand as I give you this teaching of the difference between why there might be people that come to earth that hold a certain knowledge within them that maybe haven't really been seen or accessed for somebody that maybe isn't being a volunteer in that way. So Spirit was showing me the other night about how our oversoul creates multiple experiences within itself. So I'm going to pull up a board and I'm going to draw this for you actually. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to attempt to draw this for you so that you can understand what I'm saying. So I want you to imagine, first, let's do this. This is going to be your soul. So what happens is God, this is going to be God. Okay. So this is going to be God over here. And this is going to be you. So you come and you become a frequency that is a lot like God, but separate. So in this energy, what has happened is that you are a projection of God. You are the exact same replica of God. Okay, so this is why when we talk about being created in the image of God, you are literally created in the same image of God, but you come out as a separate entity than God. But there's still this cord of attachment that brings you into being the same as God. Now, you as your soul, you spend this time in this energy getting to know yourself before you begin to even have any experience in the universe. Once you have known yourself as a separate form from God, you then think, I'm going to go and have an experience in the universe as a human. So this part of you then creates itself over here and it creates another form of itself. And this part of yourself then projects itself over into this part of itself. And this part of yourself is your human self. But this part right here plays a really significant role because this holds the same frequency as this, which holds the same frequency as source energy. So this comes and brings information into what this is what you're going to call your higher self. And then the higher self projects itself into another soul, which then moves into the frequency and density of a human body. So this higher self over here is always connected to the soul part. And but what happens is while we're human, we start to be disconnected from that oversoul, from our higher self. So we can't access this part of ourselves unless we break down this barrier and we start to heal what caused us to have that separation. And this is trauma, it's density of earth, it's things you've been taught, all kinds of things. Now, the difference between just someone that's projecting themselves in this way and maybe a master teacher is that the master teacher then this part of itself is projecting itself over here and it's creating a reality for it to experience. And this is going to be an alien self or a self in a different dimension. So in a different dimension, you're going to have a different frequency and energy about you, but you are still connected to the original form of who you are, and you still have this frequency of that part of you. However, in this form, there's less need for the higher self, like over here. So this over here didn't need to create another part of itself to connect back to self because it's more likely to be able to connect with self. There's not a separation here that keeps you from connecting. It is connected. And so there's not a like really need to have an oversoul because you're just reconnecting with your higher self or your original self up here. Now, what is interesting about a master teacher, so let's just pretend this is Jesus down here. God decides, hey, I'm going to send to earth a teacher that is connected to its higher self in a form that can get information down to earth to teach all the other humans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part of myself over here and I'm going to move it over into this part of my higher self over here. I'm going to merge these two energies. And this part of me is going to merge with this part of me. And then when this part of me releases those barriers that keeps it from connecting, there's potential for this part of me to then come over and connect with the other. So what this part of me does when it releases and heals, it comes back, connects with the higher self, which then connects with the other parallel life of it, which is connected to the highest self. So there's information that this part of you can access that this part of you cannot access because it's not a direct connection here. So hopefully this is making sense. So a master teacher is someone that comes to earth not through the higher self in this way, but by connecting through the original soul form into a form that is not connected to your human experience, which then connects to the higher self, which then connects to your human self. So a master teacher is being able to access information that is being passed down from this part of themselves down to this part of themselves. But in order to get that information, you have to become more connected with your higher self to receive the information. Now, as this takes place, this human part of you begins to get to know the alien part of you, or the part of you in a higher frequency. It could be an angelic being, it could be extraterrestrial, it could be anything. Not everybody's going to have this experience. This is particularly those who are connected with bringing through information to earth that can help teach them. So this is for the sake of this, we're just going to say master teacher. So the master teacher, and we'll use Jesus as an example, was a volunteer from a higher dimension, extraterrestrial, who projected itself into this higher form, who projected itself into the human form, which then gave Jesus access to its higher self to gain information from another dimension, which then allowed these two beings to work together as one and get all of this information from higher density, from higher frequency down to earth, which allowed them to teach something that was beyond the human logic. I hope this is making sense. Okay, so this is what Spirit had showed me, is that this oversoul has billions of experiences that are happening all at once. Just like God, you are not the only frequency that God has created. God has billions of itself throughout the universe, and you just happen to be one of them. And so we are all God reflecting itself. And then you create this experience where you start sending your frequency out. And as you can see, as you create another oversoul, that part of you sends another part of you out. And do you see how the universe is constantly creating and exploring itself as you are creating and exploring yourself? So even though this is you come from God, you are having this experience and this experience, but you're also having this experience and this experience and this experience and this experience. Now, let's say that this is your human here, and this is an alien. So this is your alien self. You may never have contact between these two, but it doesn't mean there's not contact with the highest form of who you are. But a master teacher isn't going to have these two things separate. These two parts of their higher self is going to actually be one energy. So instead of them each having their own higher self, they actually share a higher self, which then gives them out information. But this person in this experience, and this experience, and this experience, and this experience, they're not in contact with these two. So over here, there is a frequency going from one to the other, which is giving access to the higher self. This is why Jesus was considered a master teacher, because when he came to earth to work on himself in the first 33 years of his life, when he went out into the desert for the 40 days and 40 nights, he actually was breaking that barrier between him and his higher self to gain access back into his higher form. And then once he got back in touch with his higher form, he received information from this part of himself, which is then deeper connected with this and this part of itself. So it all is working together. And this is why what I love about this is it shows how the universe is always a reflection of itself. Everything is reflecting itself in the universe. It's just different opportunities and experiences that is giving itself as it's reflecting itself. So I thought that was a really interesting and unique way of Spirit showing me that some of us that came to Earth to teach, that might be a master teacher or very connected to a higher form, such as myself, there is an actual connection with the same oversoul, with the same higher self that we're working with. And then that gives the information. Now, for me, they have shared that part of it with me, but the extra layer is that Annabelle, my higher self, who is an Octarian, actually is connected to a council who call themselves the Wisdom Keepers. And Annabelle's who gives me access to work with the Wisdom Keepers. It's not that I am on a human level connected to the Wisdom Keepers. It is that my soul frequency that's connected to Annabelle, that is connected to Wisdom Keeper, gives me access to the Wisdom Keepers so that I can channel their information and teach it to humanity to remind them of who they are to help with the ascension. So if you were to go back into this same thing, this part of me over here, the alien part of me, is connected to a council. So let's see here. Let's make this council a big blue blob. So Annabelle, which it would be my higher self or my alien self over here, is connected to the Wisdom Keepers, but Annabelle connects to my higher self, which then connects to my human self. And this is how we relay information back and forth between this. But then she gives me access to the Wisdom Keepers, channels the messages through and gives them through my higher self and then down. So by connecting to my higher self, I'm gaining access through Annabelle to the Wisdom Keepers, and they are able to work through my higher self frequency to get me messages. But it's through her that was able to connect me with it. And so this is why a master teacher has wisdom beyond what we can comprehend on earth, because they're actually thinking from this perspective instead of this perspective. So I hope that makes sense. I know that it's kind of confusing in some ways. And if I think of a better way to teach this, I will. But also, I want you to understand that we all have a higher self. And we all have access to our higher self, which has higher frequency knowledge. You don't have to be an ascended master or a master teacher to gain access to your higher self's knowledge. Is that some people were volunteers, we will say, to come and bring the access to from a different dimension to Earth to help with the teaching of ascension. And again, it doesn't make anyone more important than the other. We're all equal because the higher frequency you go, the less there is the I am and more there is the we consciousness. And that's the whole purpose of having a master teacher, is to get you back into the we consciousness and away from the separation that you have to look for something outside of yourself to give you work. You come back into self, find your worth, and then you combine that with the outside world, because what's within is what reflects without. So you move into the consciousness of unity instead of us against them or me versus them. So I hope this helps. Let me know if it made sense to you. If it didn't, I'm happy to see if I can come up with a different teaching, but that's what they told me. So I'm just passing that along to you. So let me know what you think. If you haven't subscribed or followed, I would love if you did that as well to help me grow my YouTube channel. I've been on here for several years and just haven't been growing much and really haven't promoted that either. So I will take blame. But if you would share, follow, subscribe, and just hang out with me here, I'd be super grateful. So until we meet again, I wish you the best day, night, evening, whatever time it is for you. I send you all the universal love. Namaste.